Good morning. Hey, good morning. And welcome to Emerson Unitarian Universalist Congregation. My name is Jeffrey Jacoby, and I'm in the choir, the story troupe, the MOE, and the worship team, and I'll be your worship associate this morning. Thank you all for being here with us here in the sanctuary today. We are so glad that every one of you is here. I offer a special welcome to those of you joining us for the first time, or maybe you're back after a long absence. Lane and Greg, yes, that's you. So extra big welcome to you. We are grateful you are here and look forward to getting to know you. For those of you joining us online this morning, another special welcome to you also. Thank you for being with us today. We hope to see you here in person sometime in the future. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of each and every person through anti-racism, anti-oppression, support for the LGBTQ+ communities, working for reproductive justice, voting rights, and other issues as the world calls us to side with love. We seek to build a beloved community not only here, but in our surrounding area. If you are viewing online, we hope to meet you soon in the future. And for everybody here in person, you are invited to join us for social time following the service for light refreshments in our fellowship hall. The fellowship hall is on the first floor behind the sanctuary, right down this hall. And then at 11:25, please join us for religious exploration and small group activities. There will be worship reflections here in the sanctuary with Douglas, and additional offerings are listed in your order of service. And now we pause to light our chalice as a symbol of our shared Unitarian Universalist faith. You have to believe in yourself, even when others doubt you. Trust your instincts and follow your dreams. Oh, and those chalice lighting words are from the amazing Barbra Streisand, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Have to mention Barbara. I can't forget that. And in the spirit of love and the beloved community, let's greet and welcome each other to this new day as we share our congregational affirmation: we need not think alike to love alike. In the spirit of love and the beloved community, let's greet and welcome each other. And those in the sanctuary, please feel free to move around to offer greetings. And for those online, please use the chat to introduce yourself and to say hello. That's lots and lots of welcoming. This is great this morning. I know we all missed each other being here in the sanctuary the last couple weeks. Hasn't been a normal service here, so this is exciting to have everybody back here in the sanctuary. So I know we're all excited to see each other again. Today we continue our Voices of Emerson series and have the pleasure of welcoming Douglas Futch to the pulpit. Douglas grew up in the 1970s in Tallahassee, Florida, in a dichotomous world of social activism and Southern Baptist conservatism. He was heavily influenced by the social conversations in the media of the day, specifically by the Norman Lear TV comedies such as All in the Family, Maude, Good Times, and The Jeffersons. He also found role models in activist celebrities such as, here she is again, Barbra Streisand. We love her. Jane Fonda, John Lennon, Sidney Poitier, Aretha Franklin, and Diane Carroll. He and his husband, Michael Lukens, joined Emerson in August 2022. For the first time in his life, he found a church that aligns with the social justice dialogue he learned as a child. Besides being part of the Emerson Choir, he now serves as the vice president on the board of trustees of the congregation, and we thank him very much for that. And now a few words from Mary Oliver. The journey. One day, you finally knew what you had to do and began, though the voices around you kept shouting their bad advice, though the whole house began to tremble and you felt the old tug at your ankles. Mend my life, each voice cried. But you didn't stop. You knew what you had to do, though the wind pried with its stiff fingers at the very foundations. Though their melancholy was terrible, it was already late enough and a wild night, and the road full of fallen branches and stones. But little by little, as you left their voice behind, the stars began to burn through the sheets of clouds, and there was a new voice, which you slowly recognized as your own. That kept you company as you strode deeper and deeper into the world, determined to do the only thing you could do, determined to save the only life that you could save. And we have one more, just a quick announcement from Douglas before our opening hymn, so just a few words from Douglas.
Good morning, everyone. Reverend Christina sent this morning. She would like for me to read it. Unitarian Universalism believes in the right of free speech and the democratic process. Attacks like those at Saturday's political rally weaken democracy, and the Unitarian Universalist Association condemns this attack. At a time when democracy is already at risk, these events will only make our political environment more precarious. As we prepare to meet this moment, we must return to our spiritual grounding and faithful practice. Take a breath, reflect together, wait for emerging truth over quick speculation. Anchor yourself in communities and relationships that foster resilience, liberation, and strategy. Cultivate nuance and seek out deep wisdom, political analysis, and spiritual grounding, as misinformation will be rampant. Our Unitarian Universalist tradition is rooted in the values of human dignity, justice, compassion, and democratic principles. We will remain vigilant in our commitment to protecting our democracy and the integrity of its principles and the rights of all its people. Let us keep love at the center. We are in this together.
Thank you, Douglas. And now, our opening hymn. So please rise in body or in voice as we join together in song our opening hymn, number 38, Morning Has Broken. And now we pause and reflect on matters of the heart. Thank you, Douglas, for doing the stones for me today. For this morning's ritual, we have water and we have river stones. The stones are smooth and the stones have weight. They are indicative of both life's pleasures and times of ease, as well as life's burdens and times of heaviness. The water receives these stones with ease and calmness. Each week, you are invited to write a joy, sorrow, or concern in this book, or email it to pastoralcare@emersonuu.org to be read. If you're online, we invite you to recreate this at home. You can place a stone in a bowl of water to honor what is in your heart. We begin by placing 3 stones. One in honor of the Cherokee and Muskogee nations of indigenous people who lived here before us. And a second one for those wrongly enslaved here who labored on this land. And one more for all those hurting in current conflicts across the globe. This morning we had nothing recorded, so all of our joys and sorrows and concerns are within us this morning. So let's go ahead and take a moment, and we'll put in a stone for all of those joys and concerns that have not been written down, that are in our hearts, that we'd like to be addressed at this time. In thankful awareness, let's say the Buddhist prayer of loving kindness. Please read the words with me that are printed in the OS, and I think they'll be on the screen too. May we all be filled with loving kindness. May we all be free from harm and suffering. May we all be well in body, heart, and mind. May we all be at peace. Blessed be.
As many people know, July is Disability Pride Month, and our Pass the Basket for this month will be to Canine Assistance. They're an organization that provides service dogs for people with mobility issues, type 1 diabetes, seizure disorders, and other needs. They also provide therapy dogs for children's hospitals across the country, including here in Atlanta. I often get to see some very sweet golden retrievers in my office every time I go in. Thank you.
Donations will now be taken. For those in the sanctuary, as the basket is passed, please feel free to offer a donation. If you missed the basket, we have giving boxes on the wall where you can put your donation if you didn't have your wallet handy or your check wasn't ready when the basket went by. Also, a lot of people know this, some people don't, in the basket there are lollipops. So you help yourself to one if you would like a lollipop. There's something to take from the basket as well as you can put in. And you can also check in your order of service for other ways to give electronically, and for those online, go to emersonuu.org and select the Giving tab to donate. All donations, unless otherwise specified, are shared equally between Emerson and our partner organization.
Are we on? There we are. Good. All right, so can I have the young and the young at heart come join me up here for our story? Come be young at heart with me. Okay, so first, before we start our story, I have to say I'm sorry to my husband because this story is going to be a little long, so I'm sorry. He's worked so hard today on his talk, so bear with us. All right, our story today, do we have pictures? No? Oh, all right. So we're going to do it the old-fashioned way. Our story today is called The Name Jar. All right? And it's a great story. Through the school bus window, Yoon Hai looked at the strange buildings and houses on their way to her new school. It was her first day, and she was both nervous and excited. She fingered the little block of wood in her pocket and remembered leaving her grandmother at the airport in Korea. Her grandmother had wiped away Yoon Hai's tears and handed her an ink pad and a small red satin pouch. "Your name is inside," she'd said. "My name?" Yoon Hai had wondered. Again, she took out the red pouch to look at the wooden block with her name carved in it. As she ran her fingers along the grooves and ridges of the Korean characters, she pictured her grandmother's smile. "Is that thing for show and tell?" a boy asked Yoon Hai, surprising her. Yoon Hai looked up as more kids leaned over. "No, it's mine," Yoon Hai answered, quickly putting the pouch in her pocket. "Are you new here? What's your name?" a girl asked. "Yoon Hai," said Yoon Hai. "Ooh, nay?" the girl asked, scrunching up her face. Nay? Some kid chanted. No, Yoon Hai corrected. It's spelled U-N-H-E-I. It's pronounced Yoon Hai. "Oh, it's you hey," the boy said, "like hey you. What about hey you?" Just then, the bus pulled up to the school and the doors opened. Yoon Hai hurried to get off. "You hey, bye-bye," the kids yelled as she left. Yoon Hai felt herself blush. Yoon Hai stood in the doorway of her new and noisy classroom. She was relieved that the kids on the bus had gone to other rooms, but her face still felt red. "Aren't you going in?" asked a curly-haired boy with lots of dots on his face. "You're the new girl, right?" he asked cheerfully. Yoon Hai nodded, and before she could walk away, the boy took her hand and pulled her through the door. "Here's the new girl," he announced so loudly that the teacher, Mr. Kokodas, almost dropped his glasses. Mr. Kokodas thanked him and greeted Yoon Hai. "Please welcome our newest student," he said to the class. "She and her family just arrived from Korea last week." Yoon Hai smiled broadly and tried not to show her nervousness. "What's your name?" someone shouted. Yoon Hai pictured the kids on the bus. I haven't picked one yet," she told the class, "but I'll let you know by next week." As Mr. Kokodas showed her to her desk, she felt many round, curious eyes on her. Why doesn't she have a name?" she heard someone whisper. "Maybe she robbed a bank in Korea and needs a new identity," a boy replied. On the bus home, nobody teased her, but Yoon Hai kept thinking about her name. "How was school, Yoon Hai?" her mother asked when she walked in. "Did you understand the teacher?" Yoon Hai simply nodded. She unpacked her school bag and set the red pouch by the photograph of her grandma. "I'm glad you're learning English well," her mother said. "You must study hard, behave nicely, and get good grades to show that you are a good Korean." "I will," replied Yoon Hai, but I think I will like my own American name," she said quickly. Her mother looked at her with surprise. "Why, Yoon Hai is a beautiful name. Your grandmother and I went to a name master for it." "But it's so hard to pronounce," Yoon Hai complained. "I didn't want to be different from all the American kids." "You are different, Yoon Hai," her mother said. "That's a good thing." Yoon Hai just wrinkled her nose. Later that day, Yoon Hai and her mother went grocery shopping to the new neighborhood. They passed Fidel's Falafels, Tony's Pizzas, and Dot's Deli. A big graffiti-painted garbage truck roared like a lion as it took off down the street. Nothing sounded or looked familiar until they got to Kim's Market. The sign was in both English and Korean. Her mother picked her cabbage to make kimchi, a Korean-style spicy pickled cabbage, and other vegetables and meat. She also found some seaweed, Yoon Hai's favorite for soup. It made Yoon Hai smile. Just because we've moved to America, her mother said, doesn't mean we stop eating Korean food. At the checkout counter, a friendly man named smiled at Yoon-hai. Helping her mother with the shopping, he asked. Yoon-hai nodded. I'm Mr. Kim, he said. And what is your name? Yoon-hai, he answered. Oh, what a beautiful name, he said. Doesn't it mean grace? Yoon-hai nodded again. My mother and grandmother went to a name master for it, she told him. A graceful name for a graceful girl, said Mr. Kim, as he put their groceries into the bag. Welcome to the neighborhood, Yoon-hai. That evening, Yoon-hai stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Hi, my name is Amanda, she said cheerfully. Then she wrinkled her nose. Hi, my name is Laura. Maybe not. Her smile turned down. Nothing sounded right. Nothing felt right. I don't think American kids will like me, she worried as she began to brush her teeth. Ha-hi mani idu shusei, she said in the mirror with her mouth full of toothpaste. The next I forgot to show you the picture, sorry. The next morning, when Yoon-hai arrived at school, she found a glass jar on her desk with some pieces of paper in it. Yoon-hai took out one and read it aloud. Daisy? That's my baby sister's nickname. But she said you can use it if you want, said Cindy, who sat next to her. Yoon-hai took out the rest of the papers. Tamala, she read. I got it from storybooks, said Nate. She was smart and brave. Yoon-hai nodded and unfolded another piece. Wednesday? Yeah, you came here on Wednesday, said Ralph. Thank you for your help. A smile spread on Yoon-hai's face. Ralph quickly said, we'll put more names in. You can pick whatever you like, or pick them all, and we'll have the longest name in history. So there she is with her jar. At 3 o'clock, the bell rang for the end of the school day. Yoon-hai looked out the window and saw it was sprinkling. It's the same rain, she thought, but in a different place. She watched other kids leaving in groups. Hey, a familiar voice called out to her. Yoon-hai turned around to see the curly-haired boy again. I'm Joey, he said. And you? Don't you have a name? Yoon-hai thought for a moment. Well, I can show you, she said, and took out the small red pouch. She pressed the wooden block on the ink pad and then stamped it on the paper. This is my name stamp, she said. My grandma gave it to me. Every day, the jar got fuller and fuller with more names, and Yoon-hai read them all. She found names that she liked, Miranda, Stella, Avery. They all sounded interesting. I hope you choose the name I put in, Marco told her at snack time. When Yoon-hai got home from school that day, her little brother ran to give her a letter. It was from her grandma. She opened it quickly. It said, To my Yoon-hai, I hope you are enjoying your new school and new friends. Be sure to help your mother and your little brother. Here the moon is up, but the sun is up. No matter how far apart we are, no matter how different America is from Korea, you will always be my Yoon-hai, your grandmother forever. We love grandmas. On Saturday, Yoon-hai walked to Mr. Kim's store. Mr. Kim was helping a customer, but he looked up and greeted her. Hi, Yoon-hai. Hello, Mr. Kim, Yoon-hai replied. She felt as if she was back in her old neighborhood in Korea. On Monday, Yoon-hai came to class early to look at the names one last time, but the jar wasn't on her desk. Instead, there was just a single piece of paper with a name on it. Yoon-hai slipped it in her pocket. Where's your name jar? Ralph asked as soon as he saw that it was gone. I don't know, Yoon-hai said. It wasn't on Mr. Kokoto's desk or on any other desk, and it wasn't on the counters or any shelves. As the other kids arrived, they helped look. Soon, Mr. Kokotos came in and Ralph shouted at him, The name jar is gone. The jar with all the names. Gone, Mr. Kokotos replied. With a look of concern, he asked Yoon-hai, Did you get a chance to read all the names? Yoon-hai nodded. She took a breath. I'm ready to introduce myself. Yoon-hai wrote her name in both English and Korea on the chalkboard. I liked the beautiful names and funny names you thought of for me, she told the class, but I realized that I liked my name best, so I chose it again. Korean names mean something. Yoon-hai means grace. Yoon-hai, come downstairs, Mother called up to Yoon-hai. Your friend is here. Yoon-hai rushed down to see what she meant. There stood Joey, and in his arms was the name jar. Where did you find it? Asked Yoon-hai breathlessly. Joey looked embarrassed. Well, I took it, but only because I wanted you to keep your own name, and you did. He reached in and pulled out the names. Do you want to keep them? He asked. Thank you. I'll keep them as a souvenir, Yoon-hai said happily. Then she pulled out a piece of paper from her pocket. Do you want this back? Joey grinned. You can keep it. I'll return the name jar to the class. Maybe you can put some Korean nicknames in it for us, names with good meanings. Carefully, he pulled out a small silver felt pouch from his pocket, and then he took out a dark wooden stamp with a beautiful Korean characters carved sharply into it. He pressed it on the ink pad and then on the piece of paper next to her name. Chinku, read Yoon-hai, that means friend. And Chinku smiled. All right, so shall we sing our song of dedication?
Well, that story wasn't too long. I mean, it was kind of worth it. Good morning, y'all. Here I am again. I'm not sure why I'm standing up here this time, but we'll see. It is a privilege to be here with our Voices of Emerson series again. When I first wrote this talk, it was almost 13,000 words, which equates to about 70 minutes of talking. So I had to edit it a little, mercilessly, I might add, but we'll see how it goes. It is a little different than my normal, so I hope you'll forgive me for being a little more personal today. So you saw in the order of service one of my favorite quotes from one of my favorite actors, Lucille Ball. I remember laughing at her TV show from ever. I always watched I Love Lucy and then the Lucy Show when I was a kid. Once upon a time, Lucy said, "Love yourself first and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world." Well, Lucy, that's easy for you to say because you're smart, talented, beautiful, wealthy, and successful. The rest of us mere mortals have to work a little bit harder at it, especially me. There's an old saying, you are your own worst enemy, and no one embodies that more than I. Most days I wake up and hear the voice of my inner bully telling me how useless I am. I'm willing to bet many of you feel the same way. I suffer from imposter syndrome on almost all levels and situations. Now, I'm not naive enough to be unable to stand outside myself and attempt an objective look. From a distance, I can see that I have a successful career, a healthy marriage, and 4 of our 7 children who still want to spend time with me. I have 2 daughters-in-law who clearly love and respect me and allow me to be a granddaddy to their children. But my inner bully knows that I can mess it all up at any moment. The day will come when everyone wakes up and sees the real Douglas, which will end my charade. I am my own worst enemy. In an article entitled, "Are You Your Own Worst Enemy?" posted on the Psychology Today website on May 28, 2021, Dr. Ahona Guha explains that many people self-sabotage out of other things, fear and low self-efficacy. She explains, self-efficacy is our belief in our capacity to manage a certain situation or to affect change in our lives. It's probably one of the most vital psychological competencies we can build because it lies at the heart of our belief that we can change our lives, learn new things, or develop better behaviors and patterns. If we lack this belief, we are likely to experience some learned helplessness and will not even contemplate taking action on making changes we might desire because we do not fundamentally believe that we will succeed. Well, so that's the crux of it. My inner bully tells me that I will not succeed at anything. In this high-pressure world where we are pushed from an early age to succeed, I think many others feel the same. Now, none of us start out doubting ourselves. I look at our young grandchildren. They know no fear, and if they fall, they just get right back up again. When I was young, I didn't have an inner bully either. My earliest memories are happy ones. I was turning 3 years old, and my parents had just moved us to Eglin Air Force Base in Fort Walton Beach, where my daddy had just been promoted to a captain in the Air Force. My mother loved being an officer's wife in the early 1960s. She attended and threw smart cocktail and dinner parties and socialized with the other officers' wives. She especially loved the officers' beach in Fort Walton, where she and I spent almost every day building sand castles. We would rush home to fix dinner before my daddy arrived, and when he came home, we would play horsey and bicycle together while my mother set the table. It was a happy and carefree time, and I felt safe and loved. I vividly remember my mother and I standing in front of a big airplane waving to my daddy sitting in the cockpit. I remember him waving back. My mother told me he was going to a place called Vietnam. That was sometime in the late spring of 1965. My little brother was born in July, and I don't remember much about that, except that my mother and I were very disappointed that he wasn't a little sister. We were really upset about that. My daddy's job in Vietnam was to provide air cover for ground troops as they rescued wounded soldiers. On December 8, 1965, during one such rescue mission, his plane became disabled. When he attempted to land the plane back in Thailand, the plane crashed and he was killed instantly 20 days before his 28th birthday. Even though my mother was now an angry and very bitter 26-year-old widow with 2 small sons to raise, she went about creating a home of love, laughter, and music. I turned 4 in March of 1966, and by the end of the year, she had built a big new house for us. I kept my little red record player on the top of my dresser so my annoying little brother couldn't reach it. I would push my chair over to the dresser and stand in front of the mirror singing concerts to all my records. I spent lots of time also with my mother's family. I loved going to Winn-Dixie with my grandmother to pick out pole beans. We would bring them home, wash them, and then sit in front of the TV and watch Days of Our Lives in Another World while we snapped them. In the spring of 1969, when I was 7 years old, my mother announced to my brother and I that she was to remarry. We were both excited at the prospect of having a new dad, and the man she would marry, Mr. Futch, who eventually adopted us, was fun and playful when he came over for dinners with us. They married in May, and in August we left the big house my mother had built for us in Jacksonville and moved into a smaller house in Tallahassee. Before she married my daddy, my mother had earned her RN and maintained her Florida license, but had never practiced. Now, for the first time in my life, she would work full-time at the hospital while our new dad would go to school. There were lots of other changes, too, but the most significant change to our household was the introduction of the paddle and the belt. Before our new dad came into the picture, I only remember my mother being angry once, and the punishment was banishment to my room for the day. Our new dad, however, came from a different world. Spare the rod and spoil the child was the only way to go. My mother had been taught by her church that the man was the head of the household, so it seems that her new husband's approach to child rearing was acceptable. And I sometimes wonder if she welcomed having a dad around for us again to take some of the pressure off, because I'm sure being a single parent could not have been easy. Now, I'm not here to debate the merits or the lack thereof of physically disciplining one's child. I can say, however, that the introduction of corporal punishment so relatively late in my childhood was very jarring. So, corrective discipline was the order of the day, and unsurprisingly, corrective discipline was administered almost always because I said something out of line. I was a smart mouth. Oftentimes it came swiftly and without warning. So I learned quickly the best way to stay out of trouble was to keep my mouth shut. My mother insisted that we have family dinner most nights, and that was the only safe space where free discourse was allowed. Otherwise, I stayed in my room with my record player or went to the living room to watch all those TV shows Jeffrey listed with the family. Because she was working all day now and my stepfather was off at school and later his job, my mother hired a caregiver for us. Her name was Emma, and Emma and I became instant best friends. Emma was a massive soap opera fan, and I still loved him too because I used to watch him with my grandma when we snapped pole beans. In 1972, there were 16 soap operas on the air, and Emma and I figured out a way to watch 11 of them every day. During the summers of 1972 and 73, we spent our days in front of the television with her screaming at the top of her lungs at all the nefarious machinations of those villains. When Emma picked us up from school during the school year, she would fill me in on everything that had happened during the day. My third through fifth grade years are my favorite school memories, but the happiness and safety I felt there was not to last. In July 1973, we moved across town to a big new house. I would start sixth grade at a new middle school, and I was excited about that because that meant I would have a chorus class. Now, Ray and Patsy Kicklighter were both music teachers. Mr. Kicklighter was the chorus teacher at Leon High School, and he directed every year and produced a musical every February with all of his chorus students. Mrs. Kicklighter was the chorus teacher at my new middle school, and I was excited to take her classes. She had promised to train me so that I would be ready to jump right into the music program when I got to Leon. On the first day of school, I excitedly walked into my boys' chorus class with her. I sat in my seat in the risers, all ready to go. Soon after the class started, there was a hard smack on the back of my head, and somebody whispered in my ear, "You sorry F-word, nobody wants you here." Well, first, I was flabbergasted that someone I had never seen before would crack me upside the head, and second, I had absolutely no idea why he was upset or what that F-word even meant. When I got home that day, I had to look it up in the dictionary. The definition that popped out to me was a derogatory slang word meaning homosexual. Well, that wasn't any help either until I looked up the word homosexual. Well, that must be what he was talking about, I thought, but why? I'm not homosexual, and even if I was, why would he be so mean about it? Well, whether I was or wasn't, or whether it was good or bad, was all irrelevant, because for the next 3 years, every single day, Mr. Bully and his sycophants made my life a living hell with secretive punches and when no one was looking, and especially with quiet insults. Daily, I would hear how horrible and worthless I was. I dreaded going to school, and I did everything I could to be sick and stay home with my soap operas. Now, looking back, I wondered why I never told anyone. I know for a fact that my mother would have practically burned down that school to make things right. But maybe that's part of why I never told her. I was convinced that it would get worse if I said anything. So I stayed silent for 3 long years. After all, the best way to keep out of trouble is to keep your mouth shut. The happiest day of my life to that point was at the end of the 8th grade when I discovered that Mr. Bully would attend a different high school from me instead of Leon when we moved into the 9th grade. But the damage Mr. Bully did to me was immeasurable. By the time I did walk into Leon High School to begin the 9th grade, I was a former shell of myself. My goal then was to blend in and stay out of sight of anybody who might take over for him. I walked into Mr. Kicklighter's class excited to be there, but also nervous. While Mr. Bully was not there, a few of his sycophants were in my new class, and I could hear whispers behind me as they told the other guys how sorry I was. Now, I did stay in the choral program for all 4 years in high school, and Mr. Kicklighter was a huge part of my success, both musically and otherwise, later in life. My junior and senior years were exciting because I made it into the audition choruses and ensembles, and the audition kids were safer. But my inner bully was always lurking in my head. Now, I know you're all thinking, well, Douglas, you seem like you got it all together now. and that may or may not be the case, but that's because at the darkest point in my life, the universe sent me two things. First off, my beloved soap operas, and second, the open circle. Emma was long gone to a better paying job, but my soap opera characters were my only friends, and I loved them. They were my life and my lifeline. When I had to be at school, I kept up with the stories from the weekly summaries in the newspaper and through my subscription to Soap Opera Digest, which I devoured from cover to cover every month. In the summer of 1975, just before my 8th grade year, I was home alone watching my stories. So when the doorbell rang one day during Search for Tomorrow, I was a little irritated. But in those days, you had to answer the door, Standing in front of me were Laurie Lawson, her mother, and Robert Butler. They had come from the First Baptist Church downtown to invite me back to church. We had been an off-again, but mostly off-again churchgoers there since we moved to Tallahassee. I had gone often enough to know who was standing at my door, but we had not been there in quite some time. Well, it seems there was a new minister to youth there named Mark Wilbanks. Mark had started a Wednesday night youth group called the Open Circle, and anyone from 8th grade to 12th grade was welcome. The Open Circle was just what it sounds like, a place for kids to gather informally, have a little Bible study, sing a few songs, and do a lot of just hanging out. Now, my mother was flabbergasted when I asked her if I could go, and even more shocked when I decided to keep going. Before long, I was involved in the church's music program, too, and I sang my very first solo playing, you might be surprised by this, typecasting, The Prodigal Son, and in our Sunday evening service that the middle school choir performed. I still remember all the words of that song. I was also in 3 singing choirs and ensembles and in the handbell choir, and by the time I was in the 10th grade, I was at church every single day except for Saturday for some rehearsal activity or both. The Open Circle gave me a space where I could be myself, mostly. I didn't have to worry about Mr. Bully or any bully. I could just go there and be happy. So if I was at church or at home with my stereo or my soap operas, I felt safe. I even almost felt safe inside the walls of the chorus room at school. But feeling safe and feeling self-confident are two different things. I always knew I was a loser, a failure, and it was beginning to get bad because I was figuring out that Mr. Bully was right about one thing: I was gay. Now, 1977 was a different time for anyone who was gay. It was only 8 years after Stonewall, and the only pictures I had of gay people were the photos from the Pride parades in New York and San Francisco that showed up in magazines every summer. Those pictures looked overwhelmingly scary to me. Now, this is not my coming out story. I might save that for a different day. But I will say, realizing that you're gay when much of your life is wrapped up in a church that, while very liberal for its time, taught that being gay was a sin, was a very real struggle. I met my best friend Sherry at church in 1977. She and I spent hours poring over the Bible, looking for ways to make being gay okay. Now, Mark had taught us that prayer and the Bible were the answer to everything. My struggle was that my prayers were telling me I was just fine, but the Bible was certainly telling me a different story. By the end of the 12th grade, Sherry and I were both becoming more than a little disenchanted with the Open Circle anyway, because while it's true that it was open for anyone to come, if you wanted to stay, it meant a certain level of conformity that we weren't really so sure about. I can't imagine that you would think I would conform to anything. So I was happy to leave the Open Circle and the church in general when I graduated from high school in June 1980. After all, I still had my soap operas and Sherry and the new adventure of college. My mother insisted that I had to live at home and do my first 2 years of college at Tallahassee Community. After getting my associate's degree, I could go anywhere in the country that I wanted to go, but I absolutely had to do my first 2 years at home at the community college. Because of the AP tests I took, I was lucky enough to finish my associate's degree in 1 year, but then fear and my lack of self-efficacy kicked into high gear. There is no way that I could go to college because I would have to live in a dorm. That was way more scary than I could possibly even imagine. So I opted to stay at home and attend Florida State University, where Sherry was also attending. At the beginning of our sophomore year, she introduced me to a woman who lived in her dorm. That woman eventually became my girlfriend and then my wife and the mother of my 2 daughters. The end of our story is not as happy as the beginning, so I'll just call her Madam X to protect her privacy. Madam X and I soon became fast friends, and by November 1981, we were officially dating. Now, you might ask, why were you dating a woman when you knew you were gay? So here's the deal. I thought Madam X was the answer to all my pray the gay away prayers. She was beautiful, exotic, worldly, and sophisticated. We both know now that we would have been much better off being Will and Grace, but at the time I thought she was everything I had prayed for come to life. The best part of my early time, though, with her was that she had no idea about my past, and she saw things in me that I never imagined in myself. She believed in me without question. When you felt inferior for so many years, having someone so special see something special in you back is incredibly freeing. With her standing beside me, I found a confidence I hadn't felt since the days in front of the mirror singing my concerts with my little red record player. Finally, hearing my inner bully tell me how useless I am was starting to diminish. Now, there's a lot more to our story that isn't relevant here, but the point I'm making is that her faith and belief in me in those early days were game changers. But you can't live on someone else's light forever, because when the light goes away, you're left in the dark. So it was finally time for me to battle my inner bully alone. But how? Because I had never really been very good at it before. So I fell back on the things that I knew always sustained me, my music and my soap operas. By this time, the characters weren't just friends to hide behind. The characters, now there were characters who looked and acted like the me I knew I was inside. The little kid who was afraid to walk into a room by himself could see characters, gay and straight, overcoming their demons and making their lives better. I don't really have time to explain how those stories helped me, but I can say that they helped me see in myself all the things Madam X had seen. But seeing them and acting on them are two different things. So here's the life lesson. As Unitarian Universalists, we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. But guess what? That includes me. I have inherent worth and dignity too. Instead of hiding in the shadows and dwelling on my failures, I must come into the light and acknowledge my successes. Allow myself to see the good others see in me without flipping it into a negative, which I do almost all the time still, I will admit. It was time to tell my inner bully to go away and leave me alone. So many of us don't do that. We focus on negatives. If we allow ourselves to listen to it, our inner bully beats us down until we can't do anything. Our lack of self-efficacy kicks in and tells us we're going to fail. Back in the day when I first had to find my own light, I remembered my favorite Olivia Newton-John song. There's a theme here with girl singers this week. Olivia Newton-John song written by John Farrar for the movie Xanadu. You have to believe we are magic and nothing can stand in our way. So every morning when I woke up, after I looked in the mirror and saw the old worthless Douglas staring back, I reminded myself that I am magic. I can face a new day because I know I can make a difference in the world. I'm not Michelle Obama or Dolly Parton, and I don't have millions of dollars to spread around making others' lives better. But I can wish my husband a good morning, most days anyway. I can say hello to my coworkers and thank my barista. But here's the deal. Don't just be nice to others. You have to be nice to yourself too. Don't let your inner bully tell you you're not worthy, because that, Mr. Bully, is just dead wrong. So, Lucy, if you're listening up there somewhere, even though I'm not as smart, talented, beautiful, wealthy, and successful as you are, I still really do agree with you. Love yourself first, and everything else falls into line. You really have to love yourself to get anything done in this world. I am what I am, and you all are what you are, and we are all special.
Say about this song. I was really glad you picked this song, I Am What I Am, to be part of your service today, and that you asked me to sing it, just because it's a really great song as far as, it really It's all about not listening to your inner bully and not being afraid to be who you really are. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a worse I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I bang my own drum. Some think it's noise, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each feather and each spangle? Why not try and see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can shout out loud, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. There's one life and there's no return, no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am.
That's how you kick your inner bully out of the room. Now, if you would please rise and body your voice and join us in our closing hymn, There is a River Flowing in My Soul.
Flowing in my soul. river flowing. There's a river flowing in my soul.
Self-Confidence by Dea Nandan. Building up self-confidence is a vital thing, for it can put you on the path to becoming a king. Self-confidence for making decisions and taking chances. Self-confidence for success in future advances. You need self-confidence no matter what you do, for without it you cannot unlock potential so true. Be it in studying, relationships, or winning a fight, having low self-esteem is being lost in darkness without light. Build self-confidence inside, nourish the spirit within, let it radiate through your actions and your outer skin. Embrace self-confidence, let it be your life's magic key, for it will open many doors towards a brighter destiny. Believe in yourself. Self-confidence will plant the seed, and in time it will bear the fruit of courage that you need. It will aid you greatly, a means to change the circumstances ahead. Use it wisely and well, but never let it get too much to your head.
Thank you, Douglas. As our chalice is extinguished this morning, let us do our chalice extinguishing. We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts and out into the world until we are together again. Please join us next week as we continue with our Voices of Emerson series this summer with our very own Dominic Thomas. We're going to be looking forward to hearing that. And so we'll look forward to seeing you here again next week, here in the sanctuary or streaming online. And as our service ends, go now in peace and take peace wherever you go.
Self-confidence.
I know, right? That's what I was thinking the whole time you were talking. It got me all pumped up. And also, I didn't know you.